Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation, your everyday Rangers news channel, your fan channel with me, your host, Owen James. Guys, please smash that sub as we fast approach that magic 7K mark. There's 19 subs away now, time of recording. Right, we're going to talk January transfer window. We're going to talk a little bit about a worrying comment that was made by Phillipe Clement during his post-match presser. I don't want to reflect too much on yesterday's game. Needless to say that for 20 minutes we were fantastic, and for 70 minutes we were genuinely awful. But one glaring thing that I think came out of yesterday's game at Easter Road was the fact that this squad is nowhere near, nowhere near good enough. It is nowhere near strong enough to maintain a good challenge. Yes, it does okay in Europe, but domestically really struggles. I think we do need to acquire some better defenders. I think we need some more impact. I think, one thing that look, yes, there is an injury issue at this moment in time within the squad. The defence is threadbare. Without Suter, without Balogun, without Tavernier, with obviously Casanwejo obviously returning to Feyenoord or injured. You look at the bench yesterday, and there is so little on that bench, one, to reinforce the defence, and two, to bring impact to the team. Cortez looked powder puff yesterday. Barron is not an attacking player. He's more a defensive player. Cyril Dessers is just genuinely dreadful. Matondo flatters to deceive constantly. Nsiala is a kid. Dowell is about as much use as a chocolate teapot. Leon King is a defender. Danilo is really the only player there that provides any sort of natural impact. Now, obviously, with Clement unwilling to use the younger players like Finley Curtis, Zach Lovelace, who could provide impact off the bench as well. I think, this squad is badly in need of strengthening, and obviously the defensive crisis, especially at this moment in time, with Balogun still out, with John Suter likely to be out to the end of January. We do need to strengthen the centre half spot. We do need, I think, some good old fashioned centre halves who are going to get stuck in, who are going to cause some serious damage to other players that are going to be proper leaders, communicators. We really do lack that leader at the back. That classic centre back who leads by example. He puts his body on the line. He puts his head where other people are scared to put their foot. He's a real quality leader. Now, of course, that would mean that in January we need to obviously spend some money. Now, there's been previous reports from what John Gilligan said that the manager would be backed. That was what was said previously. Now, Rangers obviously announced a loss in their last set of accounts. There's obviously the story of the £17 million loss. So there's obviously issues around there. Now, we know for a fact that the investors in the club have put £8 million into the club to tide over that loss, to pay off that debt. To bring the club back into solvency. So we know that perhaps money could be a little bit tight at this moment in time, which, seems to be a continuing theme around this club. And I think, we can all agree pretty much that the only way forward for Rangers realistically is to bring in new investors, to bring in new money to the club, to help us to compete. Now, obviously, long term, it's about transfer strategy. It's about transfer model. It's about transfer trading model to bring in money through player sales. It's about getting into the Champions League, getting that money, or just playing well in Europe and progressing, as well as obviously winning domestic competitions in Scotland to get us automatic entry to the Champions League, or to get us closer to getting through to the Champions League. And also as well, winning trophies brings prize money, etc., etc. All good for the coffers at the end of the day. Also, if you're winning trophies on a regular basis, you attract a high level of player. It's just kind of like a vicious circle. If you don't win trophies, the side of the city do, they're more likely to attract players. It's the way it works out. Now, Phillipe Clement was questioned as regards the January transfer budget. Now, look, I think the comment has been made by some that it's the 5th of January. Why the hell have we not signed someone yet? It is only the 5th of January. And if you look around Europe, there is very little business actually going on. There's bits and pieces going on, but south of the border, there hasn't been a great deal of business gone on. There's obviously, we've allowed Robbie Fraser to go to Livy. There's been very little business in Scotland as well. So I think, it's still early days. Clubs are still completing their scouting. Clubs are still looking for players. Clubs are still, perhaps negotiating, trying to get the best possible deals. Everyone knows that January is not the easiest time to buy. It is a seller's market. Clubs know that other clubs are desperate. They're going to charge money. Now, Phillipe Clement was questioned in his post-match presser as regards the financial situation, obviously, as regards the transfer budget. people obviously, I think we all kind of accept now that no matter what your thoughts on Phillipe Clement are, I'm still, very much I'm not convinced he's the man to take us forward. I don't think he is the manager to really put into place an effective strategy, to put into place a fluid style, a consistent style to compete in Scotland. I think that is his major issue. I think he is very good in Europe, don't get me wrong. And, his away record in Europe is phenomenal, whereas his away record in Scotland is appalling. I don't think his management style is suited to the Scottish game. I think it's more suited to Europe, hence why we're more successful in Europe. I genuinely don't believe that Clement will take this club forward. But people talk about him being back in January. Now, he was asked about a transfer budget for January. Now, I accept it is very difficult for him as a manager to talk about that, and to come out and say yes or no. And, we all know, unless we're really silly, that he's not going to come out and say, we've got 20 million to spend, or 10 million, or 15, or 5, or nothing to spend. That doesn't happen. Clubs don't do that. It's just not the done thing. Now, in terms of those signings, in terms of those purse strings, in terms of the money, Patrick Stewart will have an important role to play as the new CEO. He will have the job of being the go-between between Clement and the board in terms of getting money, getting investment, and obviously securing investment to sign players. He will then obviously be involved in signing off on contracts, on transfer fees, on loan fees, on the terms of contracts, etc., or the terms of loan agreements, whether they be loans with an obligation to buy or loans with an option to buy, with then fees put in place. He's going to have an important role to play, and he certainly will earn his money and prove his mettle and his worth over these coming weeks. Now, when the manager was asked about that transfer budget, this is what he had to say. The manager was asked of if there was any budget or scope to bring in some players. He answered by saying Patrick Stewart will address the press on that and explain everything. Now, that is a worrying comment. He could have easily brushed it off and said, that's not for me to talk about. I'm the manager. I'm here to coach the players, blah, blah, blah. Is he now putting it back into the board's court? Is he smashing the ball back and saying, over to you, you talk about this because I've been asked, you talk about it? Is that what he's doing? Or is it that there is something ominous in the offing at Rangers? Is it, in fact, that there is zero money to spend in January? Is it the fact that, due to that debt, due to that reduction, trying to reduce that debt, due to that investor loan already going into the reduction of that debt, there is going to be no money to spend? Or is it going to be that the address will be very much along the lines of, if we're going to sign players, we're going to have to sell players first? Is that the situation? Or is it that they're going to come out and say that it's only the loan market that we're going to look at? Or are they going to say there is no money in January, there will be no arrivals at Rangers? That is obviously the worrying thing. This comment is a concerning one. Patrick Stewart would address the press on that and explain everything. This is not a usual thing that goes on. CEOs don't usually come out ahead of the January transfer window and say, blah, 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 we will spend, blah, 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 we won't spend. You don't hear the CEO of Arsenal, who haven't got a clue what his name is, coming out and saying that. You don't hear Michael Edwards, who's the CEO of Liverpool, coming out and saying that. You don't hear Barada, who's the CEO of Manchester United, coming out and saying that. It just doesn't happen. Now, what concerns me, and it really does concern me about this comment from Phillipe Clement, is that there will be a statement that that comes out that says that there is no money to spend. Now, if there is no money to spend, if there is perhaps only loans to go for, or not even loan fees to be able to be paid, because remember, loans are not free, they cost money, there are loan fees to be paid, portions of wages to be paid, then this puts the club in a very difficult position. Now, I know the joke is, if you really want to know how much money Rangers have got, ask the other side of the city. I know that's when they all suddenly become the Chancellor of the Exchequer. But look, I've got to stay concerned. I am worried about this. Yes, there have been transfer links in the media. Yes, there have been Rangers linked to players. Yes, there was John Gilligan's statement that the manager will be back, but it could be the circumstances have changed in the short term after the release of the accounts. It could be that there is a genuine concern about the release of funds for January. It could be that they say that, this is not about January, that the focus is on the summer, etc., etc. I think what Patrick Stewart goes on to say in this statement, whenever it finally comes out, will be very interesting in terms of what the direction of the club is going to be for the next 6 months. If Rangers do come out and say that in this statement that they will be spending money, they will be looking to bring in players in January, then that clearly shows that the board and the CEO and the manager and Niels Koppen have ambition to obviously still compete in the league, which I think is done and dusted, in the Scottish Cup and in the Europa League, to obviously try and at least win the Scottish Cup and progress in Europe. I don't think we win in the Europa League, but I think, progression is possible. Or if the club come out and say that we won't be spending, there is no money, etc., etc., we have to go with what we've got at the end of the season, that is really worrying as well, because it shows a complete lack of ambition on behalf of the board. And it shows that, perhaps the financial situation is not as great as we thought it was at the club. Like I said, Rangers do need to strengthen in this January transfer window. I mean, personally, I don't want to see loans. I don't want to see, loan players coming in. I don't want to see us not signing players who are not our own, especially, if we're going to go on to, make these players better, develop these players, bring these players on and bring them part of a transfer model. I think that is another thing. If we are genuinely serious about a transfer model, you have to speculate to accumulate. You have to spend money to bring in players, to then develop, to bring on, and then to sell on. Now, that doesn't just happen in one window or 2 windows. It happens over a series of windows. As you develop the squad, you bring the squad together, you improve the squad, the team play improves, the players improve, and therefore the players' values rise, and therefore you can make more money by selling players. Like I said, it is a concerning comment by Phillipe Clement. And it's, even for lads on X said, it sounds ominous. Like I said, it's not a usually done thing. It's usually, to be honest with you, when it comes to January, when it comes to any transfer window, clubs tend to keep quiet about these things. They don't tend to talk about these things. They don't tend to discuss them openly. It's not the done thing. So, look, overall, I've got to say, I am concerned. I am worried that the club are going to come out and say they will not spend in January. I think if they don't spend in January, this season could be a very, very long, disappointing season. Longer and more disappointing than it's already been, which, let's face it, it's been tough so far. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on this story. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, on the way out, please smash that like, comment, share, and do all that great stuff to help the channel to keep on growing. Thanks for watching. And we're all